But let's begin with China, Europe, and let's begin with that controversial comment. Post-Soviet countries do not have an effective status in international law. These are the words of Liu She. He's China's ambassador to France. What made him say what he did? Well, Liu was giving a television interview. He was asked if he considers Crimea to be a part of Ukraine. The peninsula, remember, was annexed by Russia in 2014. But Liu did not talk about this annexation. Instead, he said that the ex-Soviet states are not sovereign, or at least that's what he implied. Liu was talking about these countries: Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Estonia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Latvia, Lithuania, Moldova, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, Uzbekistan. There are a total of 15 countries, including Ukraine's, whose status has essentially been called into by that statement. In essence, the Chinese ambassador to France questioned their sovereignty, their integrity, and their borders. How did Europe react to this? Well, several countries issued summons to Chinese envoys. Liu himself was summoned by France. 80 European parliamentarians wrote an open letter urging France to expel the ambassador. But that's about it. Nothing more happened. Could the response have been stronger? Could the ambassador have been actually expelled? Could China have been officially forced to make a clarification or a statement? Perhaps all of that would have happened if it wasn't for Europe's over-reliance on China, be it for trade, be it for solving the crisis in Ukraine. According to one estimate, China accounts for 20% of EU's good imports and 9% of its goods exports. Many feel that those trade relations give China leverage. Many feel that it is because of those trade relations that Europe cannot or does not take the stance against China, or the stance in response to China, as many people feel that perhaps it should. Now, let's turn to the war between Russia and Ukraine. Not too long ago, the French President Emmanuel Macron traveled to China. He was accompanied by the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, also accompanied by the German Foreign Minister. Now, these leaders met the Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing. What did they discuss? They did discuss the Ukraine war. You see, Europe is leaning on China to establish a framework for negotiation between Russia and Ukraine. It's banking on Xi's friendship with the Russian President Vladimir Putin for bringing an end to the war, a war which has already stretched on for a year and 2 months. So in a situation like this, you could argue that Europe needs China even more. So can Europe really afford to react strongly to some erratic words of someone who's going to be just described as a wolf warrior diplomat? Now, of course, there were some strong statements that did emerge. Here's what Borrell said. The Foreign Affairs Council will start discussing about China in order to prepare the European Council in June, Borrell told reporters before the start of the summit. Maybe that will reassess and recalibrate our strategy towards China. Now, it has to be noted that China has been quick to jump into damage control mode. Let me read out what China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning told the media. China respects the sovereign status of former Soviet republics after the Soviet Union's dissolution, unquote. So, in essence, reversing what had been stated just a short while earlier. Mao also went on to add that this is China's official position. The Chinese embassy in Paris issued a separate statement. It said the ambassador's remarks were, quote, not a statement of politics, but an expression of personal views during a televised debate. So again, some sort of an effort to step back from that. And also, earlier this week, when Xi got on a phone call with Ukraine's President Zelensky, China offered to mediate. Xi told Zelensky that talks are the only way out of the war. China is now sending diplomats to Ukraine. Their task to broker a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. What does all of this boil down to? China is wasting no time to show that it is serious about playing the peacemaker in Ukraine, but there are some experts who believe that the statement made by the ambassador was too dangerous to undo. So where does the story go from here? Will it impact China's relations with the European Union, or is this going to be a storm in a teacup? So to understand what exactly is happening between China and Europe, who better to talk to than Adrian Gauffin, who's the author of Xi Jinping's biography. It's called Xi Jinping, the most powerful man in the world. And Adrian now joins us on this program. Adrian, thanks so much for joining us. Now, great to have you. You're sitting there in Germany looking at the relationship between Europe and China. How is it looking? It's been looking like a bit of a love-hate relationship for a while. Is that still the way you think it's going to go forward, a love-hate relationship?
Yes, it is. You describe it very well, because I mean, what China under the leadership of Xi Jinping is trying now to make a split between Europe and the United States, because the relation between US and China is worsening every day. And Europe became a strong ally of the United States in the Ukraine war. But now, with some things like Xi Jinping talking to Zelensky, the president of the Ukraine, and so on, with such things, China tries to make a split between US and Europe.
Okay, Adrian, a lot of attention being paid to the remarks made by the Chinese envoy Liu Xie recently, where he's talking about the USSR and the nature of the former republics and whether they really have sovereignty. Now, China's tried to walk that back. But Chinese diplomats don't usually say things that are completely off the cuff. So what do you think are the implications of that statement?
We have seen the true face, the real opinion of the Chinese leadership. Of course, they had to step back now officially, because it's also a problem for their relations to many countries, for example, to Kazakhstan, which is an important neighbor of China, and which is also a former Soviet republic. But I mean, as you said, he's the ambassador. It's not his private opinion. It's obviously the opinion which is shared by many in the Chinese leadership. And this is a very bad sign, because if we start to question the borders in Europe or the borders all over the world, that can be very dangerous.
Okay, Adrian, thanks so much for joining us. We're all going to be keeping a very close eye on China, and I'm sure Europe will as well. Thank you for being with us.